Hi guys, this is Katie from Homo Librariensis. Welcome to the channel. Yes, so I have a lot of books to wrap up, at least a lot for me. I don't think it's over the course of a month, it's probably over the course of 2 months. I definitely had some I really liked. I had a few that I wasn't super keen on. I'm kind of sad because I don't have a stack of books to show you because I mostly get my books out of the library. I do have one book, so I was pretty excited that I had at least one physical book that I could hold up during this thing. So I'll kind of go from, I really like how people have been doing it with least to most enjoyed. So some of the ones in the middle, they're kind of interchangeable in terms of spots, but there's definitely a clear least enjoyed. So the first one, and I'll put all the things up here, the first one is Run, Hide, Repeat, a memoir of a fugitive childhood by Pauline Dakin. So this was definitely my least enjoyed one. Without giving too much away, it was a memoir. It was fine. It's about a woman who grew up in the 70s and 80s in Canada and spent her childhood being moved from place to place and kind of having these strange things happen and never knowing what was going on. And then in her 20s, her mother and stepfather, or her mother's partner, explained to her what was happening and how they're actually under witness protection, and here are all the safety things that are going on and why we always have to move around, etc., etc. Except the point is that they're not actually under witness protection, but they live their lives as if they are. And I don't think I'm really giving anything away by saying they're not really, because I listened to an interview from Pauline Dakin on CBC Radio a while ago before the book came out, and basically she explained most of it in that interview. So I thought actually there would be more to the book because she had given a lot of it away in the interview. This is the kind of book where it would have been so much better had it been a long form essay, but a book, it was a little too repetitive and kind of clear from the beginning that what was really happening, and that this was kind of, while very much affecting their lives, it all in someone's head. Anyway, so I gave 2 stars to this one on Goodreads. The next one I read was The Trauma Cleaner The Trauma Cleaner, Queener, One Woman's Extraordinary Life in the Business of Death, Decay, and Disaster by Sarah Krasnostein. Another 3-star read on Goodreads. This one is actually set in Australia, which kind of surprised me, but I enjoyed. The book itself is, I guess, a biography of this woman in Australia who works as a crime scene cleaner. And it's about her past more than her actual job and how she became the way that she is. And so she was assigned male at birth and raised as a boy, and then transitioned later in life and identifies as a woman. I did like that the author portrayed Sandra Pankhurst as a flawed person. I think it's important to probably have different gender presentations in just any area, and in literature and in memoir and biography. But I also think it's important to not always paint someone as entirely positive or entirely good, or to not paint them as entirely real, to make them this sort of person who's supposed to be entirely inspirational. And so while there is an aspect of that in Sandra's life about things that she's overcome, it definitely painted her as a complicated person with a complicated history, and I thought that was really fair. I was a little bit disappointed that while they definitely talk about the crime scenes and the people, it's really less about that, and that was probably more what I was interested in, but it was definitely still worthwhile. And the next one I read was Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Reni Eddo-Lodge. I guess this was another 3-star. It was kind of 3.5 star. It was incredibly written and well researched. I think the biggest thing it suffered from, and 3.5 stars isn't bad, but the biggest thing it suffered from was just that I had heard so much about it, and there's been a lot of hype around it. I did appreciate the fact that she just especially in the introduction, just came out and addressed the fact that like it is a lot of emotional labor for a person of color, especially a Black woman, to invest that time and energy into talking to white people about race, especially if when she puts in that time and energy, what she's rewarded with is people actually refusing to believe that there's actually, that race is a thing, that she experiences racism, that we as white people have, or I as a white person have a lot of privilege specifically due to the color of my skin. And so that inability to see that and to recognize it and to not be defensive about it is really puts off the author, Edo Lodge, when trying to have these conversations. And so she's coming forward and saying, I'm really tired of this. So that was great, and it was really well written. I think I've been reading so much about this topic lately, it just kind of seems to have blended together a little bit. The next book that I read was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. And basically it follows this troupe of people who have come together to play in an orchestra and act in Shakespearean plays after this sort of apocalypse that happened. Basically, most of the population dies from an illness very suddenly, and so we're left following some of these characters in a very different world than we are in now, and a lot of the conversation is about kind of what's changed, and it's set a little bit after this time happens so that some of the people have never experienced sort of the old way of life, and some of them remember it very vividly. And so a lot of the conversation is interesting around like what we can get used to and what really matters and what is a life and what is survival. And definitely got me questioning, like, would I want to live something like that? Would I wish that I had been someone who perished in the apocalypse? And I really enjoyed that one, so I think I gave that one 4 stars. The next one that I actually have a physical copy for, I finally read The Power by Naomi Alderman, which is pretty contemporary for me. And so, I mean, you've seen it all over BookTube, probably know what it's about, but the real basic premise is that kind of all of a sudden this latent ability, or they think latent ability in women, comes out to produce electricity, and it sort of changes the power dynamics between men and women, and women specifically are now more powerful than men, and this leads to kind of these different reactions and political uprisings and these imbalances, and it's being written, it's very Handmaid's Tale-esque in the sense that it's written about a specific time, but it's coming it's looking back, it's coming from far in the future where things have sort of changed and settled out, and now the society that's looking back is quite different from the one we're in now. And even though I did give it 4 stars, I did really enjoy it. It wasn't everything I wanted it to be. Without giving too much away, there was definitely a lot of elements of just, well, men do these things to women, and so let's see what would it look like if women did these things to men. And oh, look at that, it's like the same things, except that sort of is reversed. So I thought that the way it was done was really good. The story kept me engaged, I would say, through most of it. There was a part about 80% of the way through where I was kind of unsure if I wanted to continue, but overall I was even though I really liked it, left a little bit disappointed that it didn't go far enough. It wasn't wholly unexpected, which doesn't mean it's a bad book, but I felt like there was just something missing. So 2 more books. I got I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, and this is another 4-star read for me. I did really enjoy it. It's a nonfiction book on my list, which I guess there are a few other nonfictions actually, never mind. It's always hard to say. I'll Be Gone in the Dark is about the East Area rapist and Original Light Stalker, or Golden State Killer as Michelle McNamara coined him. And this was a serial rapist and serial killer active in the, I guess, northern area in California in the 70s and 80s, and basically was, until just before this book was published, until after this book was published, never caught. And it's about her obsession with this this case and all the lengths that she went to and all the time that she spent searching for this murderer. And I kind of wish I had gotten to it before they had caught the person, just because it doesn't really detract from the book, but I don't know, I think it would have been more interesting or to have read the book and kind of been along that journey with Michelle McNamara, who has unfortunately passed away. She passed away before the book was finished, and to take that journey with her, then to then learn that he had been caught. But either way, he is in custody, so that's excellent. So last book, we read it for book club, my real life book club. So at least 2 months have passed because this is my second book club book that I'm talking about. We meet about every month. So The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I gave this book 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I think I'm a bit biased. My partner and I read it together. We both loved it. She doesn't use Goodreads, but let's say 5 stars from both of us. Nobody else in the book club liked it that much. They all enjoyed it, but nobody else liked it that much. But we loved it. We just loved. A lot of the books we've read for book club have been really sort of melancholy or sad or just tragic, and they've been great books. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, we're talking about A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini, and Their Eyes Were Once God by Zora Neale Hurston. So, like, good books, but just intense books. Whereas this book, it wasn't, I don't know, it was fun, it was interesting, it kept you reading. I guess I should say what these books are about. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo has been around booktube. I'm a little bit behind the game. It's basically about this made-up famous actress who started in Hollywood in like the 50s, and now it's sort of contemporary times. She's elderly, and she is known for having married 7 times. And she is asking a reporter her to write her biography, or giving this biography to this sort of nobody reporter, or journalist, I should say. And the question, of course, is why? Why did she pick her? So throughout the whole book, there's little references to that, and you're kind of left wondering for most of the book why. And that's the mystery part, and the other part is, the other mystery is who's the greatest love of Evelyn Hugo. And so the part that I kind of love about it, I can't really tell you because that's a big giveaway, although it does come early in the book. But I was pleasantly surprised by some of the themes in the book that I wasn't really expecting. So it was nice to see. I mean, Evelyn Hugo is sort of this, like, she's written as this sort of character who never really apologizes for what she does. She's a strong woman. She knows that she's manipulative. She knows she uses her beauty to get what she wants, and she doesn't regret it. And she's unapologetic about it, and she doesn't think that necessarily that she's a good person. She just acknowledges that she's done a lot of things to get what she wants out of life. And I don't know, I just appreciated that they kind of wrote these things in, which are traits that are often attributed to men. And then when attributed to women are usually done so negatively, but she was written as like this really strong character. So I appreciated the character of Evelyn Hugo, and really enjoyed the book. So if you have not read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I definitely recommend that one. Got that one from the library. So yeah, it was a pretty good reading 2 months. Overall, a lot of 3s and 4s, which is pretty typical for me. I don't give very many books 5s. Not too many 2s because I wouldn't really want to finish a book that was a 2. But yeah, overall I was pretty happy with that. Some of them I'd like to revisit, maybe Heartberries, when I think that's the kind of book where I might get more out of a second read. But I really appreciate you coming and checking out my video. If you've read any of these, I'd love to hear what you thought. If you see the ones that I enjoyed and you have some recommendations, that's also greatly appreciated. Again, thanks for stopping by. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.